Okay, so here we are back in our scenario, and let's just review here. Our issue is that we're having trouble getting these two trains to go into our yard ladder. So now that we have a little bit more information about how the signaling works in blocking, let's go ahead and decide how we're going to handle this. So I've decided I'm going to use the method of placing the signals but not using them as visual cues for the player. So as far as the player is concerned, they won't see any signals, and we're just going to use this yard ladder as a restricted area where it's like visual driving rules. So I need to have what we call I call a restricted signal, meaning whenever I'm going up into the yard, I need to show a restricted aspect. And that cues the player that this area here is under visual rules, and you have to go no more than 20 miles per hour, and you must be able to stop within half the distance you can actually see. So I know that I had two tracks, so I know I'm going to use a 2T signal. Now what I'm going to do here is use a 3-head 2T 1R. And what that 1R means is that one of the diverging routes is restricted, and it's always the highest route, the highest diverging link number. And since I only have one diverging link number here, it means that one is going to be restricted, or show a restricted aspect whenever it's switched. So whenever we're switched into the yard, we're going to show a restricted aspect. On the other side, of course, we only have one track we're covering, so I'm just going to use a one head 1T, and I'm using the one head because I don't need any kind of warnings or anything for this signal. The next signal is far enough away, my speed's slow enough here, and the next signal is probably always going to be diverging since it's a converging route. So I don't really need to put any kind of a warning signal here in this yard area. So we're going to be putting signals on both legs of this Y or junction, and then we're going to go to the opposite end and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put our one head 1T signal on both legs of the Y. And this is just covering this one junction at the bottom that takes us into the yard. So our link placement here is that this link needs to be beyond the switch, or inside of the ribbon for the switch, and then on the opposite end where the 3-head is, we need to be outside the ribbon of the switch when we're coming down from a reverse. And now I'm just adjusting this other leg here. So let's go ahead, and I think I have my placement good. Let's go ahead and go into live mode here and see what our signals do. Always double check your signals after you place them. So here I am in our signal. They're just adjusted for the player train. So as you can see on this side, I've got the flashing red, which means I'm leading into the yard. And on this other end, we have two signals that are showing. So we have an issue here. We're going to have to look at where our links are, because both, one should be red and one should be clear. And as you can see, I didn't quite make it on that number 1 link to be on the outside of the block, or the ribbon, excuse me. So I just adjusted it. So see, I had to have it outside or inside the yellow line of the next track ribbon. So I'm just going to move this one over here to the right, try and keep it kind of standardized. But you can see I don't have a lot of room here, so I'm trying to get a train to go by here without damaging this signal. I'm just going to adjust it back a little bit. I think we're going to be clear here, but we can always come back and adjust this again. So I'm going to exit out and restart and look at our signal now. So straight ahead and into the yard. So whenever I'm going into the yard, I'm going to get the flashing red, and whenever I'm going straight ahead, I'm going to get the proper indication for the status of the line straight ahead. And here on the other end, as you can see, we're now getting our proper aspects showing. Okay, so now since I've decided that I'm just going to signal this for AI, I'm going to use a 1H0T, meaning I'm not going to be crossing the junction with any links. I'm just going to use a single link signal here. So I'm going to use the head signal. I'm going to use the head signal because there's no post attached to it. It's just the light head. So I'm going to use a head 1H0T, and I'm just going to place my link, adjust its direction slightly, and then I'm just going to sink it under the ground. So like so. I'm going to do the same thing on the next track over. I'm going to place the one head 0T signal, and then I'm going to do this for every track, both ends of this yard. And then once I complete that, I'll come back in and we'll go over the completed yard and how it looks. Okay, so we finished our laying all our signals down, and they are all hiding under the ground. So we'll do a little quick flyover here, and nothing is visible. But if we look at the number 9 map, we'll see that we do have signals indicated at the ends of all of our sidings. Of course, they're showing green, but for the map, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be looking at them. We're seeing them as we're driving. So let's take a look now at our scenario. And as you can see, we no longer have the red X, so we are now good to go for both of our trains. So that's great. Let's up the ante and see if our theory of how to place signals is going to work here for us. So we're going to add a couple more engines in, and we're going to send these guys into the yard also. So we're going to make them apply drivers and make them standard freight, just like the rest of our engines. And then we're going to add our stop points, which are our go by flag and destination 9, and then a stopping destination somewhere in the yard. Okay, no problem, no X's. We're good there. Let's try the next one. Standard freight, go by 9, and give it a destination in the yard somewhere. Alright, so we're going to add our final destination here. So we want this engine to go into the yard ladder, and everything is okay. So that's good, but let's go ahead and up the ante a little, and let's give this engine another destination. So we want this one to pull into the yard ladder and continue forward back into the siding next to where it started from. So let's go ahead and add another destination point. And when we do this, you're going to see the pathing. Now the pathing looks like it's setting the train to reverse completely from the yard ladder and reverse back, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to add another flag here for go by and make that the opposite end of the siding that I want it to come back through on. See there, that puts it a little closer, so now it's pathing it correctly into the siding from the yard ladder. So it's going forward instead of reversing. Now I could probably also, and I'm going to do the same thing for, another engine. And as I create these points, one of the ways that I could get it to path correctly is probably at my final destination point, I could remove the allow reversing checkbox, which is on the bottom right checkbox there, or the middle right checkbox with the like the U arrow, and that may also path it correctly, but I'm going to use a pathing point and just send it through a go by and say go by this destination, and that also forces the engine to take the path that I want it to take. No, I'm sending it down the wrong line there, so I'm going to fix that. Make sure we don't get any red X's anywhere and everything looks like it's okay. So let's go ahead and play the scenario. And as we do, we can see all 4 engines take off, which is a good sign. If any of the engines was not working correctly or was having issues, it would probably just sit there on the track and not move. But since all 4 are moving, we're going to guess that the AI is going to run through the scenario the way we have it set up. Make sure we have no collisions down here at the end of the siding and all the engines stop correctly, which they do, and then we're going to move forward in the scenario. We have 2 engines, and one's already into the yard ladder and the other one's getting ready to enter the yard ladder, and we have our 2 UP engines waiting for the block to clear. So as the far engine clears the block by entering the yard ladder, our first UP engine moves forward, and as it does, it clears the block behind it, so the other UP engine can move forward into the new block, and then it's going to wait because it can't enter the next block until the UP engine clears the yard ladder. So let's move forward in the scenario. Now here's our CSX engine pulling back in on its final leg. So he's going to pull into the siding and head towards his final destination. And then we're going to go into the yard ladder and look at our final UP engine, and it's going to be sitting there waiting for its timer to run out, and the timer stops and the engine starts to pull forward to go to its final destination. The other 2 engines have no more destination, so they're sitting at their final. So they're done for the day. And then we're going to watch the UP engine on its final leg as it comes into the yard siding. And with that, we're going to say this was a successful setup of the yard ladder. And in the next tutorial, we'll show setting up the yard ladder with actual player viewable signals. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one.